In this example, we have been asked to graph this function and its inverse using a graphing calculator. Use an inverse graphing feature if available. Find the domain and range, and then also the domain and range of the inverse. So what we want to do first is go to y equals, and we will enter our original function into the y1 slot. If you have something there, clear it out. Access your root button by pressing second and then the x squared key. And then here we want to type in x minus 4. Now notice how my calculator extends the root button out over the x minus 4. If your calculator does not do that, then you would want to put parentheses in front of the x and then behind the 4 so that your entire expression is within the root. From here, we would then press second, program, which is draw. And then from here, we want to go down to find draw inverse. So we can arrow down. And mine, it's option 8, draw inverse. Press enter. Okay, and then we need to specify what we want to draw the inverse of. So it takes me here to the home screen. So I need to go to vars, and then arrow over to yvars. See that number 1, which is function, is highlighted. Press enter. And then it will allow me to select which y value I entered my original function in for. We entered it in for y1, so you want to press enter. So basically what we're telling the calculator here is to draw the inverse of the function that I have in y1. Press enter. Okay, and I have the inverse drawn. Let's see here. I think our window's not good. Let's go to the window and let's do zoom and let's do zoom standard. Okay, this is actually my original function. That's f of x. Let's go and tell it to draw the inverse again. Originally it didn't show up in a good window, so this being our original, let's now go back and tell it to draw the inverse again. So you do second, program, go down to option 8, I believe, press enter, and then go to vars, yvars, press enter on function and enter on y1, press enter, and there's our inverse. Now notice that the inverse doesn't look like a reflection across the line y equals x. And the reason for that is on our calculator, there is more room on the x-axis than there is on the y. So we're doing 10 units by 10 on the x being longer than the 10 units by 10 on the y, and so my graph is slightly distorted. But I can see enough to be able to sketch my shape. Notice here that my original graph starts at 4. If we went and we counted up here, the inverse would start at 4, but on the y-axis. So let's go and let's sketch. When I sketch it actually on my paper, I'm going to neaten it up a little bit from what it is on the calculator. So I'm going to mark off 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4. I know that my shape of my square root function in general looks something like this. And then on the inverse, I know I'm going to be going up 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the same general shape, but in this case, going up. And so I can see when I've drawn it on my paper, it looks more like an inverse since it's reflected across this y equals x line. Okay, now from here, let's answer the questions about the domain and range of f. So the domain of my original function, let's go ahead and label it. That's f. This is f inverse. So the domain of f, the x values we can see starts at 4. And so it would be 4 to infinity, including that 4. The range of f, we can see there on the range that we'd start at 0 and go to infinity. So 0 to infinity. And then if we wanted to talk about the domain and range of the inverse, we could basically just switch these. So in other words, domain of f inverse is going to be 0 to infinity. The range of f inverse would end up being 4 to infinity. And if we look up at our graph, we can see that's exactly what happens in the domain and range of the inverse.